Hi. If you're wondering what that was, it was a physical representation of what it's like to be neurodivergent in the public school system. If you're neurodivergent, you probably already know what I'm talking about when I do that. But if you're not, let me explain it to you.
See, going to school as a neurodivergent student feels like searching for the perfect song and only ever coming up with the Cars soundtrack.
And while the Cars soundtrack is awesome, I can only listen to Rascal Flatts' Life is a Highway so many times before I literally perish. But if analogies aren't really your thing, Theo Bakker, a professor at the University of Amsterdam, did an incredible study about the disparity between autistic students and those who are neurotypical. The data from his study shows that autistic students and students with other neurodivergent tendencies have a much harder time succeeding in school, especially college, compared to their neurotypical counterparts. And while this data's paper is compelling, it doesn't really tell you exactly what they're struggling with. Enter, now PhD, Julian Petrachenko. Say hi, everyone. See, Julian wrote his PhD dissertation on teaching students with neurodivergent tendencies, specifically autism and OCD. And in my very unprofessional opinion, because I don't have a degree, he knocked it out of the park. In fact, I read all 181 pages of this paper. Julian breaks up the struggle of neurodivergent students into three categories: physical, educational, and social. For the purposes of this video, I will primarily be focusing on the educational aspects rather than the physical or social aspects of this paper, because one, physical aspects to neurodivergent people tend to be more diverse and way more personalized, and one solution will not cover all problems. And I won't be covering social issues because I still haven't figured them out yet.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
So without further ado, let's get into those problems he specifically highlights. One of the first things that Petrachenko brings up in terms of educational problems that neurodivergent kids face is specifically executive functioning. Generally, the executive functioning skills of people with neurodivergent tendencies are less than their peers, and generally they require more effort to maintain that level of executive functioning. This leads to problems with homework, lower GPAs, lower test scores, not studying, and all of this you can also see directly in Bakker's study. He also brings up that schools weren't made for neurodivergent kids, they were made for the average. And so, when a neurodivergent kid is forced into the school system, they are faced with more challenges because it wasn't made for them. Because school was made for the common denominator, anyone that is an outlier from that general clump of dots in the middle, it doesn't necessarily work very well for. Finally, he brings up a point that I find to be probably the best one he makes. Self-advocacy is important for people without neurodivergent tendencies, and it's hard enough for them. But people with neurodivergent tendencies tend to have a harder time with that as well. So in needing it more and not being able to seek it out for themselves, they reach an impasse where they can't proceed at the rate they should, but they need to do so. Because I don't want to use all of my sources to relate it back to myself, and I want a bigger sample size than literally just me, here's my friend who also has autism. Come out! Sit down. So how was your experience in school?
It wasn't very accommodating. I felt uncomfortable every time I walked around school or the halls. Overall, it was pretty bad.
What would you say was your biggest struggle?
Well, I didn't really do it.
So like, executive functioning as a whole, right? Womp womp. You said the environment wasn't really conducive to neurodivergent people existing, right? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, there was always too many people. It was always way too loud. There's a lot of unsavory smells, to be honest.
Thanks for talking to me about this, man. Your insight was very much appreciated. He doesn't know he'll be back later. Speaking of solutions, here's mine. I want to preface this section by saying every person works differently. And one of the solutions that works for me may not be one of the solutions that works for you, or if none of them work well, try and find something that does. When it comes to executive functioning skills, a lot of people try and brute force it, and this leads to burnout relatively quickly, because if you try and brute force something that doesn't come naturally to you, it's not gonna come to you. Rather than try and brute force executive functioning skills, I tend to find it way easier to get leverage on it. Make doing homework or doing studying or doing tests into something that you don't have to necessarily enjoy, but you can trick yourself into wanting to do it. With neurodivergent people especially, we are very good at staying on task when it's something we like. Here's an example. I like to gamify my tasks. So what I will do is, oh, this has a point value, this is a point value, this is a point value, this is a point value. By the end of the day, I want 25 points. By the end of the week, I want 75 points. And once I reach 25 points for the day, I call her quits. I say, all right, I can do what I want to do now. The other thing that this helps me do is I can gamify my grades as well, because those are inherently point-based. They straight up have point values most of the time, and if I say, oh, I want to get 90% of the points for this, or I want to max combo all my homework, and so I'm going to do all of my homework and get 100% on all of my homework this entire term. That helps you go if you stick with it and if it's achievable. The reason I say make it high but achievable, though, is because if you make it that 100%, you need to get everything perfect. The perfectionism that comes along with that is actually going to hinder you if you screw something up. If you screw something up and you said, hey, at the beginning of the semester, hey, I want to get 100% on everything this semester, and you get a 98, you're going to be pissed and you're not going to want to do it. Unfortunately, I am not able to fix the systemic issues with the school system and neurodivergent kids. What I can, however, tell you is that if you go into school with a mindset that just because you're neurodivergent, you are automatically at a disadvantage, you're going to be at a disadvantage. I have gotten into the habit of, before I go into any scenario, be it education or professional, I go up to the person in charge, so usually my professor or my boss, and I say, hey, I just want to make it abundantly clear, I have level 1 autism, very high functioning, I tend to not be able to read social situations very well, and if I say or do something that is perceivably rude to you, I do not usually intend for this to be the case. And just like that, you solve the problem of teachers not really understanding why you're being so rude sometimes. Finally, my favorite, self-advocacy. One thing I always have to remind myself, literally all the time, I do this when I'm talking to my friends too. If I think they're being mean, or suspect they're being mean, they're probably not being mean. I'm probably reading into things too much. And the majority of the time, that's the case. So how does this play into self-advocacy? To advocate for yourself properly, I feel it is necessary to have the understanding that they are trying to help you. If you seek out help, generally they're not going to tell you to kick rocks. From my experience, most professors are more than willing to help you if you ask them to help you. Keyword, you ask them. They will not help you unless you ask them to do it. Getting to the point where you feel comfortable asking for help is the problem for a lot of neurodivergent students, though. I more or less void the idea in my head before it even comes up that they're gonna be mad or upset or think I'm stupid for asking for help, because it doesn't make sense for them to be mad in the first place about it. They are literally paid to help you. Because I've already voided the idea that they won't be willing to do it, it's not an issue, because I already told myself they can't get mad about it. Let's go see our autistic friend again. Pick one that he's going to use this fall in college. How do you feel about going back to school?
I don't know.
Well, that's really too bad, because you're going back anyway, this fall. No! Except this time, I'm going to be here to help you. Because I have developed some strategies, and if you don't want to use them, well, you're not going to like that, buddy. See, these strategies that I'm going to teach you today are strategies I've developed. And, you know, I'm pretty proud of them. I've known you for 7, 8 years now. I think you're gonna like the gamify strategy the best. We're gonna make you turn all of your classes and coursework into a video game, but not actually a video game. Jinkies! Oh no you don't! My interviewee has disappeared mysteriously. Anyway, that's gonna be all for today. Roll credits. Bye-bye.